Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We are past what I call the corridor of death, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving to the day after Christmas. In terms of sports, in terms of having to deal with family, now we can get back to, even though we have New Year's, that's, that whatever. There's hockey, there's stuff that we just can't get past all the holidays. And now we can just get back into the regular swing of things, which is a beautiful thing for me. And we go to Russ for the pre-show.
So let's really talk about one of the more miserable hot stove off seasons in Major League Baseball, because if you're a Dodger fan, you're happy, but really no fans of any other team are happy. Teams now have just sort of taken the tack that, well, two best guys are off the market, and now we're just gonna try and underbuy anybody else. What's interesting is, fans always think, well, look, you guys went for Yamamoto. Now you have this money. You could spend it in other places. But teams aren't doing that. If they got Yamamoto, they were spending it for him. If they got Ohtani, they were spending it for him. But they're not necessarily spending it in other places. And I don't, again, it's going to be an interesting season. But teams financially are sort of giving up against the Dodgers already.
Well, I was going to say, Jan, I think the thing that makes this feel worse, the Yankees got Soto, but they traded for him. And he's going to be out there in a year. We know Boris is going to take him to free agency, and maybe the Yankees sign him then if he has a great year. They at least gave up something for him, and it was a trade. And we know the reasons behind the trade with San Diego and their financial situation. But it makes it even worse for all these other teams that the Dodgers bought Ohtani, and then the Dodgers bought Yamamoto, and it makes a couple dozen teams, there are 5 or 6 big market teams, but the couple dozen teams that can't compete with that, it makes them feel like crap.
There technically is a cap, right? There's a cap and a floor. There's a luxury tax above it.
Right.
We have seen historically that many teams would prefer just to get the revenue stream that comes in from the owners who are willing to spend, as opposed to those who are just willing to play along in the background. And there's a couple who are willing to spend the money, right? The Mets had $101 million penalty that he had to pay Steve Cohen, right? Right now, they're not using those funds per se and taking it and plowing it back into the team immediately. They're probably going to be above the threshold. I don't know if they'll be above the second threshold, which is we refer to as the Steve Cohen threshold, because literally that got added in the CBA shortly after he joined the team. But the Yankees have shown a willingness to spend up to a point. We'll see what happens when Soto is a free agent, how much they're willing to go. They were only willing to go $300 million, Mike, as you know, because they refused to go above what Gerrit Cole's making, which I can understand to an extent. However, Cole was signed, 3 years ago? 4 years ago? The marketplace has changed since then. Every player usually gets more than the guy before him. That's how the salary continues to increase. And if you had asked Boris, he would have said he was all for the Yankees probably going above and beyond for Cole, especially since Cole I don't think, have any opt-outs that the Yankees would be concerned about having to up his salary. So this is the normal have and the have-nots in baseball. You can see what's gone on in Oakland, which is to a certain extent why they're moving. Their unwillingness to spend money, and the fan base has not necessarily plowed money back into that team. And until baseball figures a way to level the playing field, you're going to continually have this happening all the time, and it's never going to change.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of haves that aren't spending what they used to, and part of that is the Mets. They're not spending to what they used to. They're not going to admit that they're retooling this year, so they're going to they're going to get Lucas Giolito on the cheap. Well, it's okay, but they're getting everything on the cheap, and they still haven't signed Pete Alonso. So if this were a regular year, Jan, I think fans would be expecting all that. They're not getting that. And that's happening all around the majors, not just the Mets. There are other halves that aren't spending either. And they'll spend a little bit, but that's it.
Is that official that they're getting Giolito, or is that
no? They've been rumored to be in the mix. But I guess, Mike, the question after you, Russ, is other than Snell and maybe Montgomery, who, in my opinion, Montgomery's price tag is likely inflated because of his playoff performance. Who are you spending a ton of money out there for?
You would spend it on Snell and JD Martinez because they don't have a DH either.
I have no problem. And you know what? I've been saying go get Martinez, and I've been saying go get Justin Turner for weeks. I've been saying get both of those guys.
Like, you know, all the again, I understand Met fans' frustration because they have all of this money, they could literally meet anybody's price and don't have to play this waiting game. By playing the waiting game, you play a dangerous game and you could lose out. And I think that's what has fans frustrated.
But is either one of those guys such a high ticket price tag item that you're talking about not spending money, right? Those aren't guys where you're spending $100 million for.
No. And Martinez is a guaranteed 3,100.
I have no problem getting Martinez. Yeah. I wanted him last year as a possible DH option.
So yeah, it's weird, but we'll see. If I have a feeling nothing's going to happen until after the new year now.
Well, I do.
Go ahead, Russ. Sorry, Mike.
I do think that one thing that is happening here is, you see the market here where, Montgomery and Snell, with Yamamoto gone, they're going to raise their price. And I don't know whether, teams like the Yankees are not paying $25 million for a guy that they traded a year and a half ago because they didn't think he was good enough to be a fifth starter. They like him, but they're not paying him that kind of money. Now, somebody else might, and he might be good for them. But I think, and he pitched well in New York, but they look at him like, I think they're more willing to pay Snell because Snell won a Cy Young than a guy that they know there's a ceiling towards. Even though Montgomery and Snell are the same age, they're both 31 years old. So
yeah, but
it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird.
How were the Yankees proven to be correct in that assumption?
That he's not I think he had a good year. He pitched well for the Cardinals. He pitched well for the Rangers in the playoffs. Do I think he's anything more than, say, a number 4? No. I think he got hot.
He pitched well for the Cardinals after we went through the year before also.
Right.
2022, he pitched well down the stretch for the Cardinals, right? And that was the big consternation. Yeah. The Yankees got fleeced getting Bader, who ended up getting hurt. And then Bader had a little playoff run, which got everybody excited. And then Harrison Bader turned into Harrison Bader, a guy who unfortunately can't stay healthy and can't stay on the field. To me, I view Montgomery as a number 3. I think that everybody's going to go after the other Japanese pitcher. Is going to be the guy they're going to get who's going to really start having the market pick up a little bit. But the viewpoint is, I think it's Uemura who they all view as a Senga type, and a Senga type contract might be enough to get him.
Yeah. All right. Let's start the show. Eck will be joining us in a moment. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, December 27th, 2023.
I'm Jan Levine. We have NHL hockey back tonight, and we also have had the World Juniors, which have been fun the first couple of days.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Not NHLDraftBuzz.com. And I'm Michael Acello. This is the HockeyBuzzcast.
Sorry, I'm answering Randy. Everybody's pissed off about the chat. Reboot. Everybody needs to reboot, refresh. We're not disabling the chat.
Yeah, no. I don't know what it was, but whatever it is, we didn't do anything. Sorry about that. It's
not. We're not doing it.
And I'm Michael Acello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Speaking of restarting, Eck had to restart his computer. That's why, of course. Let's start with the World Junior because a couple interesting games today. You had Germany beating Finland. Finland, remember, in the last few years, the Finnish junior team, they fired a coach. They've had, as much as
that was back in 17. In 17, they almost got relegated.
Right. Now, they've had some really good players, but there's been a lot of sort of confusion going on with Finland at the junior level. And so far they're 0-2 now. They lost to the Canadians, and then today they lost 4-3 to Germany. And I watched a little bit of that at the end. It was a siege late in the third period, but Germany held on. And, Russ, a few years ago, people thought, Germany on the world stage in terms of a junior, not a power, but now I think it's not a joking matter to say they're up there with the Swiss and, on that sort of second level below Canada, US, Russia when they're in it, Sweden, they're now very respectable. They've developed their organization and young players like Draisaitl a few years ago, Seider. There is a birth of quality German prospects.
Yeah, and then they don't have those guys every year. But there is an interesting one, Julian Lutz, because he was a guy I talked about and wrote about on Sportsology in his draft year, and he ended up going in the second round, I think, to Arizona. This year, he started off the year with no team. But then there were sort of rumors as to where he was going, and it was up on the web. It was taken down from the web. It became like a thing because he had to wait for a certain amount of time to get a transfer agreement going. So he did, and he finally got to the USHL and the Green Bay Gamblers, 23 points in 19 games, super fast. He had a great game. And, the DEL has always had speed. They may not pump those stars every year, but they have the speed. Look, I mean, Hamanaho's played really, really well, Devils prospect, and so is Halchin in the Sharks prospect. Some of their younger guys, Hellenius, he's young. He had a good first game. He sort of like disappeared in this one. And Pelkinen's a 6'7" defenseman who got his skates tied up with somebody else, and when he fell, I don't think he was the same. So, they've had a little bit of bad luck too, and they're young, mostly young. So that's the thing. The first two guys I mentioned are the elder guys. They do have more. Actually, I shouldn't say that. They have a lot of NHL guys, but none of them are real, like, superstars. And I think that's what's hurting Finland. Not the goaltending. The goaltending is actually pretty good with Koko.
Now, the other thing, I did see a lot of criticism of the U.S. that they only won 4-1 over Norway. That they were supposed to destroy them like 18-2 or something like that. It's like they won the game. I mean, I don't know. I can't really criticize the team for winning. Did they win by enough?
Listen, I saw Gauthier maybe miss a couple of top shelves, but not every guy's going to hit every one of them. Nazar had a nice breakaway that was stopped. Sometimes they don't go in. I thought they did fine. And that the way the first period went with nothing really going against them and their offense not getting started was something typical that happens a lot of times in World Junior tournaments. So I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, and by the way, so right now Canada's up 5-0 over Latvia, and Celebrini's got 4 points. Yep. So if you needed any kind of reinforcement that he's going to be, if not the number one pick, one of the top 2 picks, there you go.
He'll be the number one.
Yeah. And if we were concerned about Canada yesterday because they only beat Finland 5-2, and it was a close game until the second, you can kind of throw that out the window. I mean, I think first game of a tournament, right, takes a little while sometimes to settle in, which I think is really what happened. I think the U.S. got better as the game wore on. I don't think they were great. I think they had a lot of turnovers, which I think will get ironed out as the tournament goes on. But I wasn't like I was watching him going in panic, right? We saw how good Gavin Brindley is, and it was a guy Russ and I talked a lot about the draft. As a guy I wanted the Rangers to kind of maybe get in the second round last year. I thought Columbus got a pretty good steal in getting him, and he showed that he could score. And then interesting in terms of, right now Slovakia is 2-0. Gagin and Michael talk about, I'm sure Russ will talk about him. Their goalie, Adam Gagin, was great. He's been the player of the tournament, in my opinion, so far. At a minimum for Slovakia, if not the tournament overall, and it's leading up to, presuming the U.S. beats Norway, we could see Slovakia, U.S., both of them undefeated on New Year's Eve, which has normally historically been the Canada-U.S. game. But now we're going to get to see Slovakia, U.S. I mean, the U.S. would be a favorite.
This is a bad matchup, Jan, because Mike Morial and myself, when we were in USA camp, we asked the coach, David Carl, about a bigger team like Slovakia and what about your smaller defense? And he said, we'll have the puck. We'll play inside the dots. All those things sound great, but Slovakia could really take advantage of their defense, and that's something that you worry about. Gahan is terrific. Yeah, I wrote about him last year. I really think I'm working on a top 5 article right now for Full Press for goalies in this tournament, and he's obviously in there. They're tough, and the Flyers prospect Alex Sheernick hasn't even done anything yet. He doesn't even have any points, and Hanzik is doing well now that he's healthy, which he's never healthy. He wasn't healthy in the draft last year. He only played 5 games this year, but they're dangerous, man. So that's a game that I would worry about if I were the U.S. fans.
And Russ, I'll just say this before handing over to Eck. Slavkovsky is 19 years old. I think he's only got 12 points in the NHL this year. The Canadians might have been smart to send him, but just imagine how the Slovakians would have been. How much?
Oh, they would have been. I got to tell you, they'd be a medal team if they had Slafkovsky. There's no question about it. But that's Montreal's choice. And then Mike, for Buffalo, Yuri Kulich had a hat trick. He's got 5 points.
Yeah,
so he's doing well. It's just they lost Adam Jiricek, David's brother. That's tough. He's out for the tournament. So tough goings, but let's talk some NHL.
It's been fun. It's been fun to watch. I love this tournament. It's one of my favorite things. And of course, daytime hockey. You can't beat daytime hockey.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
For us, for people who work.
Especially at 6 a.m.
I know, especially 6 a.m. I mean, when's that on? Especially if you're, I've been getting up at all kinds of weird hours and everything like that. So, yeah, absolutely. Russ, I totally agree with everything you said about that Russian, about the U.S. Norway start completely.
Yeah,
we've seen that so many times. We've seen Canada go without scoring on Latvia for a period, that kind of thing.
I think the thing that makes it look worse is the fact that Czechia beat Norway 8-1 when the U.S. only beat them 4-1. So it's like, maybe they just caught them dozing. I don't know. I mean, all I know is, whatever.
If you get a good goalie or a team's nervous when they start, you're going to see that. You're going to see that. That obviously. I mean, we remember Levi, Devin Levi. Was kind of was a danger. Was a dominant goalie for everything can happen. Anything can happen in this tournament. We're getting back into hockey. I guess the big thing I've been talking about today with people, and the rumor I've been chasing the most right now is the John Gibson rumor and what's going to happen with him, where he's going to end up. I didn't think he was going to get traded this year at all. I really felt like that was a strong bet that he would be staying there. But now I'm starting to be swayed that there's enough teams that are interested, and even though that salary is really high, and another 4 years after this one, right? To go.
I think it's too much term. I think that's the problem.
Another 3 years, yeah. Anaheim, I think they have some takers. I mean, we are in a league right now where there's a little bit of a hole for some of these teams at goalie. Some of these teams that think they're there right now, that they think the Devils are, of course, a perfect example, that they think that they're ready to win right now. And if they had Gibson, are they a Stanley Cup threat? And they might be. They might be. I mean, I'm not as big a Gibson fan as you guys know, but I still think that he's better than anything the Devils have.
Well, I'll say this: $6.4 million a year is not a ridiculous salary if it's a goaltender who you believe is a top 5 goalie in the league. And I think Gibson is a top 5 goalie in the league. He's just been in front of, he's just been behind a really young, inexperienced, and sometimes bad defensive team in Anaheim for a number of years. When they've been able to play good in front of him, he's been great. The one year they were in a playoff spot, I think it was 3 years ago. They were in a playoff spot, I think in January, and he had like a .920 some odd save percentage, and he was like playing I think he played like 85% of their games, and then the rest of the year he had like an .830 save percentage because he's probably exhausted.
Yeah, the only problem is if you're a team that wants him, you got to give up a first, you got to give up a top prospect. You also have to give up one of your goalies because you're not going to have the cap space for all of this, and that's what makes this deal kind of hard. The Devils they had Nico Dawes back out on the ice today. They have all 3 goalies back, so it's kind of like they're back at square one again.
Well, okay, let's go through the teams because with the Devils, the cap space won't be the issue because there is a belief out there that Dougie Hamilton might be out for the year,
right,
or at least out until the playoffs.
Out for the regular season.
Yeah, right. So if he comes back, if it's a Forsberg or a Kane situation where he comes back for game 1 of the playoffs, then they can fit in a goaltender making $6.4 million, which Gibson is making without, now, and they have the assets too. They have, Alexander Holtz, and they have, I don't
know if they're moving Holtz I don't know if they're going to move Holtz this time, Mike. I think last year Holtz had a better shot at going. I think given the way he's played this year, I think the confidence they showed is being rewarded this year. And the thing is, right, so if you think about Anaheim, right, so Russ, Seamus Casey's been talked a lot about in this tournament. There's a lot of defensive depth, but Anaheim has drafted a ridiculous number of defensemen the last couple of years, right? So it's going to have to be a forward. The question is right, which forward can, right, if you're going to do goalies back, you can move Vanacek if you need to move some salary because he's at $3.4 million because Schmid is an RFA. after the year, and he's only making $825,000 right now.
Well, I mean, if you're Pat Verbeek, are you asking for Nemec?
No, you'll ask for him. You won't get him.
You don't get him, but you can ask for him.
Right. I mean, but see, that's the thing. Like with
you won't get Nemec, you won't get Hughes. But Mike, this is the same thing that we go through in baseball. You won't get Nemec, you won't get Hughes, you won't get Mercer, but you might get their 5th best prospect, and that'll be really good.
I think Holtz could go. I really do. I don't think. I mean, when you look at where they are right now,
but I don't think he's going.
Yeah, but when you look at where they are right now, they really have a little bit of a window right now, and they need to get a Stanley Cup caliber goalie, or else they're not going to be able to do it. I mean, they basically are. The thing that separates them from everybody else that has a shot at winning in that conference is goaltending, and it's clear today. Like Shesterkin, obviously
their defense still isn't great either. That's the other part of this. They have a very young defense. They're when they lost Severson, they lost a very good all around defenseman. They also
lost Graves.
They lost Graves, who was also
right. And they lost Hamilton now.
Defenseman. Between those two, they have not been able to replace that. Sure, you put Luke Hughes in there and you get great offense, and he's marginal defensively right now, and that's so even getting the goalie may not be the full answer for them.
But they're still better defensively than the Ducks are. You know what I mean? And the reality is
sure.
The reality is
for now. But I'll tell you one thing. Yeah. And Russell probably tested this. The Ducks pipeline of prospects from the defensive line is pretty damn good right now.
Yeah, even when they have all the guys and Drysdale, you put another 2 in there, and it's pretty close.
But you have to look at how Gibson's played, right? And he always played in front of that defense. Is what I'm trying to say. Like that, he's played well enough in front of that defense to have these pretty good numbers. You get except for obviously not the wins. You put him in, he's actually is a goalie who prefers to get more shots. This isn't the Devils team from years past where they would limit you to 25 shots or 20 shots a game. Gibson there are some goalies that do play better with more shots, and Gibson has been one of them. He has definitely.
Yes, that's true.
So put him in that. I think he gives them the confidence to be what they need to be. And if you have to give up Holtz to get a chance at 3 legitimate Stanley Cup runs, you do it. I don't think you pause on that one.
But to Jan's point, the Ducks have Drysdale, they have Manchukov, they have Zellweger, so their pipeline
and they have Luno also who's playing. They have Luno who's playing for Canada also, isn't he?
No, that's all true. But my point was more about what we've seen about Gibson so far with the Ducks defense. With where the Ducks defense is right now, like.
Right. No. I mean, right now. I mean, those guys are a year or 2 away. But right now, I mean, by the time the Ducks are ready to be a contender, John Gibson's contract is up. He's not going to be the goaltender when that team is ready to contend. So if you're
he could easily be the goaltender for the Devils for the next 3 years.
Right. Or some of the other teams that you mentioned. Now, I'll quibble on a couple of them. Why would John Gibson want to play for the Hawks? They're in a worse situation.
No, he wouldn't. No,
I don't think. Now the Sabres. This is the thing that is not okay. Should they be interested in Gibson? In my estimation, yes. But apparently the promise was made. This has been reported by a couple different people. The promise was made by the Sabres organization when they signed Devin Levi that they would not bring a goaltender in from outside the organization. I think that was asinine because I think you're resting.
He can't hold him to that. That's like
what is it? I mean, that's an expiration date.
Promise ring in high school and taking it back. Like, come on.
That's definitely an expiration date statement there. Like they're.
I would agree. I mean, I don't know if they agreed not to send him to Rochester. They ended up doing that for about a week. But I mean, I agree with you. It's like, I mean, I don't think they can be held to that. But honestly, once you've got the guy signed to a contract, you have him locked up for 7 years. So I think you'll get over it. But the thing is, if they had gone out and traded for Connor Hellebuck, I would understand him being pissed
I just think the problem with Gibson is he's got too many years left, and that might upset Levi. But if they brought in a goalie that has 1 or 2 years, I don't think it'd be a problem. Right.
If they would have brought in Cam Talbot on a 1-year deal,
it wouldn't have been a problem.
I don't think Gibson's their guy necessarily, but
no.
Maybe Marshall would be a better fit for them in some ways, but
they love their USA Hockey guys. But I don't think that the Sabres are going down that road, and I don't think Pittsburgh just made a long-time commitment to Jari, and unless Jari is part of the deal, I know that Gibson's from Pittsburgh, and that's always been
one of the reasons his name always comes up, obviously with the Penguins, but
right.
But the reality is, I think Jarry would have to be involved in that deal. That would be
Now,
part of it for sure.
Of course, the other team
would be too.
Yeah, the other team that you mentioned was Toronto.
Yeah.
And in terms of their goaltending situation, yeah, of course, Gibson would make a lot of sense. I don't know how they would make it work, because the whole point of bringing Gibson in would be to bring Gibson in and keep Nylander, because you'd make the Gibson move to improve your Stanley Cup contender status. Trading Nylander, unless Brad Treliving is of the same mind as me, is if you can't get him signed before the deadline, you trade his ass.
I mean, this might be if they know that they can't bring him back, and or if they're really, if nothing else, with the Nylanders in general, like his dad was the same way. No one knew exactly what was going to happen.
But they're talking a good game. I mean, everybody's saying they're still negotiating, that Nylander wants to stay in Toronto.
That happened with. That happened with his dad too. Like his dad, the same.
The only difference here is that he does want to stay.
I think he wants to stay for sure. It's been long known that he wants to play in Southern California, that he wants to play for the Kings, and that's been the question mark that's always been out there.
Well, getting to the Ducks isn't getting you to the Kings.
Yeah, he wants. See, this is the thing that infuriates me about not just this situation, but in all situations in professional sports. These players say, I want to play there, and I want to stay. Okay, well, to do that, you have to probably take less, and there is no taking less in this situation. The talk coming out of Toronto is that Nylander wants $11 million a year. Well, you're going to get it someplace else, because they can't afford that.
What if they ate like 30% of his contract and took Brody back? What would the money look like then?
If they ate, if
30% of the contract and took Brody back, of course the Leafs have to give up, picks and stuff.
If the Ducks ate up 30% of Gibson's contract,
yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be Brody. They would probably have to send him Samsonov, because Brody is just as intact. Their defense is shorthanded right now.
We'll leave about 4.6.
Russ, they may tell the Leafs to dump Samsonov.
But he's only got a year. This is it. He's a rental. He's up after this year. I mean, they need a goalie to fill.
Yeah, but they need an actual piece too.
Gibson's a big.
Oh, yeah, no. That's on top of the pieces. I'm assuming that in a potential Leaf Gibson deal, the first round pick is involved. Probably one of those prospects that are playing for Canada is involved, either Cowan or Minton. Maybe
you have to get the money to work.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Samsonov's making 3.5.
Yeah, but normally, okay, so the reason why I don't think the Ducks would do that is because normally you would have to give up something to get them to take Samsonov. I don't think they're going to take Samsonov off your hands just for that deal.
And the reality here is that Gibson's a very popular player in that town. Yeah. He's like one of the most popular players in that town, and has been for a while. You need to, if you're going to trade him, you need to do something that is on the level of Nylander coming back, that you can sit back and say, okay, we got Nylander. We got a star player.
Well, okay, and if
it's a bunch of little pieces.
Let's say it's that, Ak. Let's say it's that. Let's say that Brad Treliving has given Louis Gross permission to talk to the Ducks.
Yep.
Then it's a 1-for-1. It's Nylander for Gibson. There's nothing more.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't know if you could say there's nothing more, but it's.
No, I think they would take that deal.
No, I mean, I think that's just it's a safe deal. It's a safe deal that would be 1-for-1. That'd be a fair deal 1-for-1 in a lot of ways.
Because it could be sold to the Toronto fan base that he wasn't going to sign here, and we got something for the next 3 years.
Well, if you're Anaheim, why are you doing that? He's a UFA. There's no guarantee you're going to sign him.
Extended.
Only if you see if Mike said there, you have permission to talk to him. You know he's going to stay there. Like if you work out a deal ahead of that, then you're okay. But it has to be. I mean, if they're going to have to, and they know this. If they're going to trade Nylander, they're going to have to get permission to talk to his agent. And I've heard they already have. I've heard there have been situations where they've already had people talk to his agent, because that's the only way you're going to get anything value for him. So,
So if you're giving Nylander $11 million, what are you giving McTavish when he's ready for his next contract?
Well, he's not getting anywhere near that anyhow. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
He hasn't earned it.
They'll do the same thing with McTavish that they did with Zegras. They waited him out,
and then Zegras waited a whole offseason to sign. Went from 0 to 60, ramped up, strained his groin, and missed the next 2 months.
Right, but the Ducks are going to be like, "Hey, tough luck, kid." I mean, that's part of the process.
Yeah. I mean,
this is Verbeek. He's from the Steve Yzerman school.
Right.
He's going to hold them to bridge deals to make you earn your money, and that's the way it goes, kiddo. I mean, Yzerman hasn't even guaranteed that he's going to pay Moritz Seider, and Moritz Seider is a great defenseman. It's like they make them earn their money.
Yeah, and you can argue if you're going to be a good team, you're going to have a couple players at 10 or 11 million. So it's not like it would be impossible for McTavish to be there too.
You just can't have 4 of them.
Right, you can't
say that. I mean, by then with the cap up, Mike, you can have 4 of them.
No. I'm saying right now. Right now.
Right now, the Ducks don't have to worry about that. The Ducks don't have to worry about any of that because
I'm making a point about Toronto. I'm saying you can't.
Yeah, no, Toronto does have to worry about it, and Toronto doesn't.
And because Dahlstrom is not going to cost them any money for a while.
No,
and there's no way that I don't think there's any way that the Leafs can get Gibson without Nylander in that deal. And I think that's the only possibility that's there. From what the people I've talked to, at least, that's the only way it happens. Now, because of the money, just in general, they have to get rid of him too. So it's a matter of getting rid of that money to bring Gibson in. It is a good fit if they are convinced that Gibson isn't. If they are convinced that Nylander's not signing, it does make sense. And I think that's what it comes down to, because you do give yourself a good goalie. Yes, you're without Nylander, but hey, Nylander could blow out a knee next week, and you could be without Nylander too. So you might as well at least give it a shot.
Unfortunately, the scenario that has been, Nylander is the guy that should be moved because he's the only one with no trade, no move, only one without no trade, no move protection. But people are under this fantasy that what's going to happen is they're going to sign Nylander to an 8-year extension, and then they're going to trade Mitch Marner in the offseason. Mitch Marner's got a no movement clause. Why would Mitch Marner waive his no move unless on a new deal he gets 8 years from somebody else? He's from the Toronto area. He wants to stay there.
Well, he definitely wants to stay there, but there's also we don't know what's going to happen with the Leafs in the playoffs this year. Like, that's the other thing you have to throw into it. If the Leafs go belly up in the playoffs for some reason and just have a terrible another round,
then this could be made at the draft. I think it's more of a draft trade too. I do.
But yeah, I think that's more of a draft trade there. But the idea of the Gibson is more of an out trade. Like, Marner's not. We're not talking about Marner for Gibson. We're talking about Gibson.
No, we're talking Nylander. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. We're talking a trade for this year, a trade to get the Leafs over the hump this year, because they don't know who their goalie is going to be in the playoffs, and that's what it comes down to, right? So that's what's happening now.
No, I'll bring this up because this is just will stick in the craw of Russ, is that Patrick Kane is proving Russ wrong.
I said he needed more runway. He's not really proving me wrong. Last year I said it was going to be a bust. I did not say that this year. I just said he started off slow. But I also said he needs more runway. Now,
the interesting thing about this, Eck, is that Patrick Kane has no trade protection in the deal that he signed with Detroit. And the speculation out there is if Detroit drops out of the race, which, they're not out of it yet.
It's like a 50-50 shot there, right? I mean, that to me is 50-50.
But he could approve a trade, and they would then be able to move him and get something for him for their trouble of signing him to a 1-year deal. And believe me, there are teams out there right now. I mean, I just saw an article regarding the Boston Bruins and their need for a winger. I think they need a center more than they need a winger. But if you're going to go out and they were supposedly in on Patrick Kane before he signed the deal with the Red Wings. I mean, I don't know, Russ. I look at the Bruins are playing the Sabres tonight. I look at the Bruins with Zacha, Pavel Zacha, Charlie Coyle, and Connor Geekie, or Morgan Geekie. Excuse me, Morgan Geekie as your 1, 2, 3. That is not exactly awe-inspiring enough to get them, I think, past the Rangers or past some of the other teams in the Eastern Conference. I think
but there is a way to get away with it. Like, they could get, if they got like a second line center, they're never going to get a first line center.
No, Lindholm. Yeah, Lindholm's the guy.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, I don't think they're going to bankrupt their team to get Lindholm.
No, I mean, I've heard Tyler Johnson is in Boston.
Yeah, I could see them doing Tyler Johnson or something. The point is, Mike, when you got a guy like Pasternak on the top line, he does cover up a lot of ills.
Sure.
I mean, they could get away with it. Even if they got Tyler Johnson, personally, I wouldn't want to break the bank to get Lindholm. I would take Tyler Johnson cheap instead of that because he is a guy that is decent at the position, and I'm only asking him to play third line center. So
if you're talking about a guy who's tons of playoff experience, who's been through
sure, but I don't think
into that Boston team without a hit.
I don't think he's a difference maker anymore, Jan. And if I'm going head to head, I'd rather have Zibanejad and Trocheck than
obviously.
Saka
but I think if it's not going to be Lindholm, I think if Montreal is going to move Monahan, so I think the other guy that Boston could end up going for is Monahan. I'd rather look this way. I'd rather have Lindholm. I think both. Look, when they lost Bergeron and Krejci, we knew that Boston was going to struggle. They didn't have the cap room to bring in a guy who was a number 1 or a number 2 center, and they're making do pretty well with the guys in which they have. But they clearly need somebody else for the playoffs, either a second or a better third line center who can move up to a second line center if need be. Well, and both of those guys can kind of fill that spot if necessary and give them an uplift compared to what they have.
They're coming back to the pack a little bit. They've going into the break. They lost 4 games in a row. They lost 2 in overtime and 2 in regulation. And so I'm not saying that they're all of a sudden a bad team because they're an excellent defensive team. I just think they need to add somebody of quality up the middle. Now Monahan, I've heard Monahan
on faceoffs. He's 57% on faceoffs, so they don't lose there. I just think, will he even be healthy by the playoffs?
Well, that's the question. I mean, Montreal. When we start, doing the trade rumor list, as we move closer to the deadline, Montreal is going to be heavily involved because Monahan's under $2 million. David Savard's a right-hand shot defenseman. They've got players that teams in the contending teams are going to be interested in. It's not only going to be Calgary, it's going to be Montreal and a few other teams as well.
Oh, for sure. Montreal's going to be right up there, and there's a big push for Montreal to get better quicker. And so they
don't seem to be pushing that way.
Yeah, but let's see what happens at the deadline. If
who wants to go there? That's the problem. They can't get free agents to sign.
It's not.
I think with St. Louis as a coach, they have a better shot now.
It's not that hard to get people to go to Montreal. They're not that far off. I mean, they've shown.
I'll give you my conspiracy theory because I heard a couple days ago, I think it was Kevin Weeks was saying he had heard that Steven Stamkos was going to sign a deal with Tampa. I will, if Marty St. Louis is the coach in Montreal and Stamkos hits the open market, you don't think Montreal is going to go after Stamkos? Of course they will.
They might.
And again, my opinion is, honestly, I think David Savard's going to end up getting a higher price in a trade than you will Lindholm and Monahan because of the need for right-handed defensemen.
No, I agree with that. I think the problem with Montreal is with Kirby Dach being out for the year, you don't know where he's going to fit. He was doing pretty good last year.
Yeah.
And he was out, and he's going to be out this whole season. You don't know where that's going to leave you. And so I think they're going to have a problem at the center position too, most likely.
Yeah, the two most attractive commodities, even though they're not big, really, big impact guys in terms of offense, are going to be Savard and Chris Tanev, right-hand shot defenseman.
Yeah.
I mean, Calgary is going to get overpaid for Tanev. Overpaid. That's why I said, in terms of Toronto, I don't think Toronto is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender this year with their defense where it is and their goaltending where it is. So why would you trade a first-round pick for Tanev when Tanev, you can get him in the summer for nothing?
Because if you're in the playoffs, and we saw what Vegas did last year, you get a big body defenseman to go along with the rest of your team, and you increase the shot of you going for it. You don't think Toronto could use a guy like that?
No,
seriously, Mike, come on.
They could use 3 like that. That's the problem.
And they're not. Half your defense gone right now. They need something.
They're not going to sit back and Toronto's not in a situation where they can sit back and say, "Well, this is not our year."
I'll say there's 2 more things about Montreal. I certainly was right about Christian Dvorak. While he's still good on faceoffs, he was never going to be a 2C there, and he's probably too expensive to trade. But Mike Matheson can probably get dealt again too. He's having a good year.
Yeah, but he's got a lot of term left.
Yeah, I don't think they're dealing Matheson. 2 years, $4.875 million. It's kind of tough.
Yeah, I think it's possible.
Yeah, it depends on what Mike Matheson we're getting. Like that.
Oh, I mean, he's got 25 points. So
right now, yeah, I mean, it's great, but he hasn't done that long, and he had a good year last year, obviously. But
I mean, isn't that the same as what Petrie's money was? They got plenty of cap space. They could hide some of it.
Oh yeah, they could for sure.
Matheson has stepped in as a number one power play defenseman fairly well for Montreal. I just don't think they're moving him right away, and I think the term obviously makes guys like Savard and Tanev a lot easier to trade than a guy who's got, even with the cap going up.
Yeah, but they have to be wary. He's not going to re-sign there.
He's got 2 years, so there's no reason to move him yet.
To answer Andrew's question here, I don't think Jake Allen is enough of a difference maker for Toronto in terms of a goaltender. And with the number of teams out there that are looking for goaltending, that Montreal is going to get paid pretty well for Allen. I mean, he could be the goalie that the Devils go after, and they could get a second round pick for him. And Toronto doesn't have a second round pick the next 2 years, so I don't think that that's. And his salary is, I think it's in the threes. They
another team that could be looking for a goalie is the Vegas Golden Knights. They're down to their fourth string goalie now. They may have a goalie from Alaska make their debut tonight.
Yeah.
Or they're going to go with Yuri Patera, who's played a little bit.
What, Hill's hurt again?
He's hurt.
Yeah, Hill's still out. Hill's still out, and I think Thompson's got an illness, right, Russ?
Yeah. Yes. So they're
you know what? They'll still go to the Cup finals. They'll get an e-book and still go to the Cup finals.
I would say call Dylan Ferguson or maybe Aaron Dell, but Aaron Dell's playing in the Spengler Cup right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Zach likes Aaron Dell.
I don't. I said I liked him at one point. Yes.
Who's the Swiss goalie? Who's the Swiss goalie that he loves?
I don't think he's your answer right now.
Not Martin Gerber. Who's? I can't think of it.
Wait, do you like David Abisher? I wasn't on.
No. There was. Oh God, who was the guy who played for Detroit? Detroit that I loved.
I can't remember.
Or St. Louis. He was St. Louis last year. I think.
Luckily, I don't remember.
Never mind.
Yeah, we don't have to. We don't have to remember.
We'll find a videotape somewhere. Somebody's got it.
I'm sure someone in the chat room is going to say it in a second. I was never a big Mike Hutchinson fan.
No, not Mike Hutchinson.
No. All right. So anyway, I did something yesterday which I thought was kind of interesting with my readers.
Thomas Grice.
Oh, he's German.
The whole time. I just wasn't going to let you have it, Mike. Sorry, I knew who that was. But I knew somebody would get that.
I now pronounce you husband and Grice.
No. So I did something yesterday that I thought was kind of fun to look at. We don't since there's not a whole lot of other really pressing news right now, and not a whole lot of rumors going on right now. But that is the with it being Boxing Day yesterday, and which historically is a day that you take back things. I've never understood it. I've heard both terms for Boxing Day. One that you box up your gifts you didn't like and bring them back to the store. Another that you box up your decorations for the next year. I don't know which it really is, but let's just say it's.
I don't either.
Let's just say it's the first one. So Boxing Day, if on your team, if you were allowed to make one return, essentially, like you're allowed to take a player that you signed and return him. You're allowed to reverse a trade that you made, or take any player at all. Is there a player looking at say Jan with the Rangers, one thing that you would do when one player you return, one trade you would reverse if you had a chance to do that right now?
Can I go back to Rick Middleton for Ken Hodge?
No, you can't.
Okay. Mine is extremely low hanging fruit, and Russ will know this, and Jan will know this because this is a former Ranger. The 3-year contract of Ryan Reeves was an absolute abomination because if it was Ryan Reeves from 3 years ago who could actually move still.
Yeah.
Then fine.
But it's no big deal. It's buryable. That was your whole.
But no. It is buryable. But I'm saying if I could get out of it completely clean, sure, why not? Yeah. I mean, I think there are other moves.
No, you get this completely clean. This is a free pass. You're allowed to take one. You're allowed to make one. I mean, is that the best you got right now? It's Reeves. I mean, Reeves is important.
Well, I mean, Russ would say Klingberg, but Klingberg's on LTIR, so
he's already out.
It's like it never existed, so it doesn't matter.
Right. What about you,
Reeves
Russ,
is
with the
one. I
Rangers?
think Reeves is a good choice for them.
Russ, you have a Rangers pick, the Rangers player in the recent time, a trade in the recent time that you would definitely undo? Would it be Patrick Kane from last year?
Well,
But
I mean, they didn't give up a ton for him. That was just dumb. But if there was one, I'm thinking.
You think about it for a second.
Yeah, Barclay Goodrow. Barclay Goodrow. If you could get that off the books, it would change the face.
I don't have a problem with Goodrow because I look at what Blake. Do me a favor. Take a look at what Blake Coleman is making compared to Barclay Goodrow.
I don't care. Blake Coleman was overpaid too.
3.6 versus 4.9 million.
You don't think Barclay Goodrow is overpaid?
I would not have given him. I would have given him 2.75 million a year.
Although all those second, third liners from Tampa Bay all got overpaid. I mean, Yanni Gourde was making what, $5.5 million?
Overpaid.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's typical. That happens,
Now, okay, I don't agree with this because I don't think that they were going to get much more based on where he was when they traded him. But there are some people now that are saying the Sabres did not get enough for Jack Eichel. That Alex Tuch, Peyton Krebs, their number one was not enough. Now, of course, they're looking at
know that then.
Right. That's what I'm saying, Russ. And it's like hindsight is 20/20. The guy, just because the guy won a Stanley Cup, now you want 3 first-round picks and you know what I'm saying? It's like it doesn't work that way. At that point, he was damaged goods. You didn't know what his career was going to be.
He's got a lot of speed and scoring ability, and he's never put it together. So,
I do think that Peyton Krebs has sort of been blocked. Fourth line center and being like an antagonist. I don't think they're taking advantage of his offensive abilities because they have Tage Thompson and Dylan Cousins.
Tuch's really good for them. Tuch is not a
right. No. Right. But people are saying that because Eichel won a Stanley Cup and because Eichel was.
But guess what? He didn't want to be there anymore. It doesn't matter.
Right. He didn't want to be there because of the way the organization treated him, and then there was some I just think, I mean, could they have gotten more for him? Yeah, I think they got the best deal they could for him at the time. But now, of course, after the fact, since he won a Stanley Cup, now there's a little buyer's remorse.
And I will tell you, for the Flyers, it would be Ristolainen, obviously.
I think it's Ristolainen too for the Flyers. Yeah, I do, and I think that. Quite often you
not get because he stinks. It's just the amount of years, what they're paying him for, what they're using him for, just doesn't line up.
Okay, I'll do this.
It's a different one.
I'll do this rapid fire.
Let him say. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, and for a sec, I'm spacing on his freaking name right now. Why the hell am I spacing on his name? You keep going on. I'll get his name 1 second.
What, Couturier?
No.
I'll go rapid fire here. New York Islanders is JG Pajot trade and signing.
Yep.
No doubt. And maybe the Kyle Palmieri signing because I think
Palmieri's done well this year. I would say no.
Columbus, the Patrick Laine deal, and then the Laine contract extension because they could have gotten a return for Dubois like Winnipeg did, and that would have helped them out a lot more than getting Laine and then signing Laine and then
they got Gabe Vilardi in that deal, right? I mean,
Gabe Vilardi and Iafallo and Kupari.
Yeah,
Vilardi right away is making that trade look good.
Oh yeah.
Eck froze.
No, he's fine. I saw his mouth.
Okay. So no, so yeah, I mean, let's see who else.
I think there's a really good one in the chat room.
Go ahead.
Which Randy's throwing out there, which is the Huberdeau trade.
Huberdeau is going to come off my lips for sure.
Huberdeau has got to be one of the big ones that that you'd like to do back. Giving up what you gave up for him. I mean, obviously you had to move him. You had to move Tkachuk, but getting Huberdeau back is like a double whammy kind of. He really has just and then signing him and not just getting him in the trade, but then extending him as well. That's a biggie.
And if you look at the time of the trade, people thought that Calgary did well getting Huberdeau and getting Weegar in that trade.
Yeah, and obviously,
do you think
what they were doing with those two players.
Do you think they regret the Nazem Kadri signing? Because I think they do.
Yeah, probably, because Nazem Kadri is the kind of guy you get if you're close to winning it. Now you're stuck with him. Now you're.
I mean, I'll give you one for Vancouver as Kuzmenko. Like that was, he had a nice year last year, and they just way overpaid him, and now they don't know what to do with him.
I'll go back further on one. The Tyler Myers contract is the one they regret.
Yeah, but Myers is so long ago. Like
Yeah, but he's making 6
years left.
He's making right. I'm saying he's making over $6 million, and he wasn't a $6 million defenseman.
Over 5 for 3 more years.
Yeah, I'm just saying going back, they regret that one.
Yeah, they would regret.
Yeah.
I mean, it also does come into play that even though the player might not be there anymore, the repercussions of having to dig out of it are still there. In a lot of situations, that's what's going a lot of.
Like the OEL deal. That was.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I am shocked that Vancouver is thriving as much as they are right now, based on what they went through. Obviously the buyout of OEL, I mean, was a good thing because it was such a distraction. But right now, everything has gone right for them. I mean, Pettersson is phenomenal. Besser is scoring like crazy. Hughes is probably the leading candidate. Either Hughes or Makar are the leading candidates for the Norris. Demko has been unbelievable.
I'm going to say Bobby Holik, right? Can I use Bobby Holik? Is that?
Yeah, because Lee Scott Gomez led to Ryan McDonough.
Oh, okay,
I'm gonna go. No, but I looked up Kuzmenko. 2 years, 5.5, no trade. Come on, man.
Yeah,
okay. I was going with the Flyers. I couldn't remember his name because I've been just losing my. I don't know.
Mike Rapp.
Kevin Hayes. The Kevin Hayes signing by the Flyers still to me.
Yeah, 7 years, $50 million.
Has had such repercussions all along the way.
Well, I mean, I'll ask a better one. Do you think Minnesota regrets at all the Ryan Suter and Zach Parise deals?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
They did undo it. They did undo that for what it's worth.
Here, I'll go back in history.
They're doing way better than people thought they would with that whole thing.
Andrew Raycroft for Tuukka Rask. And how about Randy Carlisle for Dave Burrows?
Oh my God! Anything with Randy Carlisle and Mike.
He won a Norris Trophy, Russ.
I know, but it's as a coach, as as a player, I'll give it to you.
Jeez.
For the Flyers, you have to go back. You also have to go back to Patrick Sharp for Umberger. That's to me one of the ones that sticks in there forever.
Well, it's only because Hitchcock did not like Patrick Sharp.
I know they get rid of Patrick Sharp, who's obviously a talented player and could showed glimpses for RJ Umberger.
And I'll be the future predictor of one. When the Flyers trade Morgan Frost, they'll immediately regret that deal.
Yeah,
I mean he's playing well enough now that they may not make that mistake.
There are some people that believe that the real diehard Tortorella people think that Tortorella's handled this perfectly. I was having a whole discussion with him the other day.
He's not handled this perfectly.
I'm 100% with you on
here's
that.
a perfect example, okay?
Yeah.
So they're going on a Western road trip, and they basically brought up, and I'm forgetting his name from the Phantoms, Brett Gardner. They brought up Brett Gardner. Instead of bringing up a young player whom you might want to be able to put in the lineup, they're putting Brett Gardner in there in case someone gets sick. But they don't want to put a young player in there, and they're not bringing a defenseman. So it's like, who has he really worked in youth-wise to help move towards the youth movement? You could still win and play one more young player every game if you wanted to, but he doesn't want to.
Right. No, I don't disagree. I think this could have been handled much differently, and But
right now, while they're winning, it hides all that. But I'm just saying there's a lot of development that's not happening. Again, I go back to Eck, and you were on the show. Brad Richards was brought in as a video coach for the power play for Tampa, and it's doing better now.
No, for St. Louis.
John Tortorella.
For St. Louis,
sorry. And it's doing better now. He played for John Tortorella. You think
he did.
John would
exactly, Russ. Why the hell would he come and why the hell would he work with John Tortorella? He knows him.
No, but he might. You don't know.
No, but the reality is that there's players who there are players that adore Tortorella. Like it's the opposite, Mike. Like it could be like we don't know that Richards is one of those guys that thinks Tortorella's the best.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like if he was one that adored Torts, he'd probably be working for him. Obviously, he doesn't because he's not.
Here's something I said on another show that got a rise, and I'll say it to you, Ek, because it's the truth. John has focused so much on the penalty kill because he loves the penalty kill. He knew getting Couturier back would help the penalty kill. The penalty kill is like Superman, and the power play is like Clark Kent. And they just let this go for a year and a half, and they have no answer for it. And the funny thing is like if they actually want to be a playoff team, you need to fix the power play, and they can't do it.
You can't go anywhere without a power play and goaltending in the playoffs. We know that. So power play is everything in the playoffs, and because you can't, it just changes the dynamic of every game.
And to answer Drew, no, I'm sure Torts did not ask Brad Richards. That's my point. He needs to ask for outside help because the coach there right now cannot do it. And right now, while they're on the road, they're not going to be able to fix the power play with something new because they're not going to have enough practice time. And that's going to be the excuse for the next week or two. Meanwhile, you've gone a year and a half with one of the worst power plays in the league, and they had talent on it. It's not like they should be the worst power play.
No, and the Brad Richards thing, but the Brad Richards thing to me feels like, okay, it wasn't like Brad Richards was announcing, I am now a power play highlight coach, or whatever.
Oh, he's doing it from his house in the Hamptons, but
the best team claim me as their new power play coach. That feels like one of those things that that Brad Richards knows somebody at St. Louis was talking to them and saying, and Brad Richards says,
he knows somebody in Philly too, and he was very good on the power play.
Yeah, I know, but I wonder if I don't think.
Here's another thought, Ek. Yeah. And some people will not agree with this. Why don't you call Joe Mullen up? Ask him to do video coaching for you. You don't have to bring him in, but if you remember, Joe Mullen was pretty good on the power play and pretty good power play coach too.
Yeah, no, he was. He was great, but also was a Ranger, So I don't know.
But he did it for the Flyers. Who cares?
No, he did. I know that. I'm very curious as to how this would play out. I don't know. That's a tough one for me. But I think that I'm glad Richards is doing. But I just don't think it was. I don't think it was like Richards was out there. I think it was just to me.
And they called Vinny LeCavier. I mean, there's guys you can call.
There's got to be somebody. Yeah.
I'm sure
Oh, Mike, you got the thumbs up.
Yeah, it's because I did this. I think I don't know what the hell is going on with that.
Ek doesn't know about this. Ek, if he gets a thumbs up,
a little bubble pops up.
I saw it.
And then one day was fireworks.
I still have a picture of that.
So somebody in the chat room has the ability to do this?
I guess.
Or it's a hack. It's a hack of some sort.
There is something now. Did you see with the Twitter and StreamYard joined up for things that people can tweet out? If you're watching the show, you can tweet it out somehow on Twitter, and your thing can show up in the chat room. I don't know how that exactly.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I'm going to find out more about that, but it's a new thing on StreamYard here that I was reading about. But I don't know quite how that works. But anyways, about all the time we have for today, folks. Enjoy tonight's game. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We're going to be heating up the rumors very soon. So enjoy.